Hey guys, welcome to a quick out-of-the-box look at the brand new Revell Hurst Oldsmobile. Pan the camera down to show you the parts. We'll take a look at what came in the box. Give you my quick thoughts upon reviewing the kit, and back right after this. Alright guys, so we went out today and picked up the Revell 83 wheel. This is, of course, the new 1/25th scale tool from Revell. As you're going to see as we go through here, this is very much patterned after or in the vein of the previous G-body GM cars that Revell did, well, I should say Monogram did back in the 1980s. It's very, very, very obvious to see what this is patterned after and how it builds up, much like those kits, almost identical to those kits. So if you're looking for, 125 part kit, you aren't getting it here. This kit has 94 pieces, which is probably about 10, maybe 15 pieces more than the, say, the Buick GNX or the Monte Carlo SS was, but there are also some body pieces to this that the other kits didn't have. So we'll start out with the decals. You get all of your Hurst Oldsmobile pinstriping, as well as the Hurst Olds logos. I'm assuming that these are supposed to be the front turn signals. That's just a giant waste of decal space, because I don't think you're really going to be using the front turn signals, the marker lights, the rear marker lights. You do get your gauge cluster here, a few under hood badges here. These appear to be door locks, so that's a nice little touch there. These are obviously the center, Oldmobile logos for the center of the wheels. I'm not really sure what these DOT stripes are for. I'm sure there's something that I'm overlooking at just glancing at it, but overall it's not a bad set of decals. It's registered well. There's not a lot of extra overlay of the decal film itself, at least from looking at it. There is a little bit of extra on the edges, front and back of everything, so you might want to trim that very closely to not have a situation where you have a lot of decal film showing after you've done your decal. But overall, it's not a bad set of decals. Pretty much standard fare for what you got out of Revell these days. Your instruction manual is pretty much what you've come to expect out of Revell in the last several years. The sort of dumbed down, simplified instruction manual where your parts have their names corresponding to their numbers in the front, and your colors are have a color chart up here at the top with the letter that corresponds to the color, and then as you go through assembly, you just have part number called out and then part color call outs. And then at the back here you have your decal layout. As I said, pretty much your standard Revell fare. I guess the DOT striping, as I look at it here, goes on the back trunk. I don't know if that's an actual thing. I'd have to go look that up. But at any rate, let's take a look at what we get. You get the reintroduction of nails, or as we like to call them here. These are the Revell, the way you're attaching the wheels in this Revell kit. Very much the same as you attached them in a number of the more modern Revell kits prior to some of the ones that have had the paddle style wheels. This is the way that the Mustang, the 2006, 2007, 2008 Mustangs have these. Several other kits have these. It's not a bad way of attaching wheels, of course, but it's you do have to be careful, a little more careful with these. I tend to put them through the chassis piece and into the wheel, and to test fit them prior to actually installing them. That way you sort of have I don't want to say hollowed out the hole, but you've made the hole big enough without actually assembling it and actually having a chance of breaking something. The other little teeny weeny baggie is the tail lights. Okay engraving, I guess. There's pretty much the only thing really on these that to keep them from being completely smooth is this molding edge here. that is in the actual tail lights, but other than that, that is your clear red part. Moving on to your chrome tree real quick. You're going to see with this is a lot of real small parts runners. There's no one big parts runner in this kit. This is your chrome tree as it comes to you. Obviously, you have your 4 wheels, hood ornament, mirror inserts. My kit is straight out of the box, missing the passenger mirror face. So I'm already missing pieces, and I haven't even had this thing out of the plastic for more than 10 minutes. Then you have your rear view mirror and the lightning bolt, whatever the shifter is, your 3-pronged shifter that's specific to this kit. And the wheels have okay detail, I guess. There's nothing specific here to write home about necessarily. They are sort of a combination flush fitting and paddle wheel. I understand why the wheels are like this now. This makes them fit the hollow style wheels that Revell is now using. However, that does make them somewhat difficult to fit to other wheels, or other tires, I should say. Try to see if there's if there's a back to it, but really the hood ornament is sort of flat on both sides, and that is what it is in that sense. I'm going to put this back in its bag so that what chrome there is doesn't end up getting ruined. You get 4 tires. These are wildly and totally inaccurate for this kit. They are the bias ply tires that you got in the 71, or not 70, but the 70 Hemi Cuda and other muscle cars. They, of course, are not at all accurate for a 1983 automobile that would be on some sort of radial tires. I've seen a lot of questions as to why these tires are included, and that would simply be that, well, Revell doesn't have any 1980s radial tires in 1/25 scale. You'll recall that all of your G-body kits that Monogram did are 1/24 scale, so the tires would not be the right size, and the tires out of like the 90 Mustang LX also would not be correct because they were very specific to that car. So you sort of end up getting screwed, if you will, because there just isn't anything available, and they couldn't be bothered to tool anything up. Let's see. These are not exactly in the order they came out. They're just in the order they're sitting here. And here's where we start seeing the introduction of the Monogram building style. Your front suspension, lower control arms, steering arms. Excuse me, I was still working on that cold. And the sway bars are all one big piece. The exhaust is one piece from the cat back. Slight indentation on the exhaust pipe itself, but nothing major there. You've got several pieces of engine paraphernalia here, such as your oil filter, your starter, your water pump, I'm guessing distributor, and the alternator, the air conditioning pump. I'd have to look at which one. This is, again, old style Monogram, so you have hollow exhaust pipes, hollow cat, and there's absolutely no detail whatsoever on the bottom side of the front suspension. The edge pieces here, instead of having a protrusion that you would expect on your Monogram kit, we would normally have something sticking out the end here the wheels would snap onto. Of course, the nails go through here, and these are supposed to, I guess, be disc brakes. They do have some sort of, there you go, have a little bit of a caliper detail, so I guess that's technically a nice thing. It's not very detailed whatsoever. There's no surface detail whatsoever of a brake. It's just smooth, and amusingly, the holes are square and not round. So again, you want to test fit your nails through those first before you mount the wheels to them, so that you don't end up breaking stuff off when you mount things. Next runner we'll take a look at here has your suspension parts for the rear suspension. You'll see here again more 1986 Monogram tooling, where your axle is all one piece with your drum brakes attached and your drive shaft attached to that. This is a radiator hose. I'm guessing these are going to be wheel spacers. Let me take a peek real quick at the instructions to see what they say part number 50 is. want to be clear as it can be. They're pin retainers, so yeah, they're the going to go on the back side of the wheels to hold the pins in. You've got your spring, your rear suspension springs, and your rear suspension shocks. And again, continue with that 1980s monogram feel, because if any of you guys have a Regal GN, a GNX, or Monte Carlo SS, you'll be able to flip it over and see you have the same problem or same situation where your upper part of the gear pinion is hollow. I don't particularly care. It sort of is what it is in that sense. I'm seriously, guys, if you have one of the monogram kits, one of the other G bodies, take them out and just start putting your trees side by side. I had a whole bunch of pictures I took with my cell phone camera, so I can't really show them to you on this platform because I don't have access to them. But it is so much the same layout of the parts runners. This here has a little bit of your top side of the, or well, it should be engine accessories, I guess. This would be your control arms and your sway bar for the rear suspension, your serpentine belt and all of its pulleys, the radiator, the intake manifold, the transmission fan with the fan clutch, probably an air pump, an alternator, the hose for your air intake, and then let's see, 24 and 38. That's your air conditioning compressor and your air pump. So that makes the other thing the power steering pump. All right. But it pretty much include every single attachment for your pulley system. So that's kind of neat. And it's where some of your extra parts coming into that your monogram kit wouldn't have had. Here's your engine runner tree. Much again like a 1980s monogram kit, your engine is split in twain down the middle. So you'll have a nice big gap here that you're going to have to smooth out, which would be kind of interesting because it also has, as you see here, I think maybe, if I tip it this way, it also includes the mount to mount the engine into the chassis. So you've got to somehow putty a seam without killing that, or put it back afterwards, I suppose is always a possibility, or just cut it off entirely and go for it. It has your Y pipe for your exhaust, master brake cylinder. This, I guess, would be your upper radiator hose. The other one's obviously the lower radiator hose. Here are your exhaust manifolds. And then, let's see, again, lots of little extra parts that you would not see in a lot of kits. 84 is your brake booster. All right, makes sense, I guess. Gotta admit, I'm not the G-body guy to be going through this, but I guess if they say so. All right, and here your cylinder heads and your valve covers are one piece, but again, that is very much a 1980s monogram situation. Here's your chassis itself. This looks a lot like the G-body chassis that are in the 1/24 scale monogram kits. However, the chassis itself is about a 1/4 inch shorter in overall length, particularly up front, than the chassis in the Monte Carlo and Buick GNX. So know that you probably, at least from a standpoint of trying to put one of the other chassis into this kit, is not going to work. It's going to be too big. This chassis, of course, will be too small. There is an engraving back here for Revell, made in China, but it's in this flat part of the gas pan, so that's easy enough to get out. Don't know why they couldn't have tamper printed it on the other side or put it someplace else, but it's not as intrusive as some of the other places go. Overall engravement is okay. The thing that has been pointed out to me by several people is that the kick out on the rear frame rails is entirely too far out. It should be much more in towards the gas tank and spare tire carrier. It's way too far out in the sense of, in scale. It needs to be over probably about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch, but, in scale, that's a little bit more than you would think. It's probably, what? Do the math real quick, but I'm not going to bother. But because let's see, 2 millimeters was 2 inches, so it's going to be something in the range of about an inch and a half too far out. Does it look bad here? No, but if you compare the two chassis, it's really, really glaringly obvious that these are way wider than they should be. And because the frame rails are wider than they should be, it's making the entire back axle and back suspension wider than it should be. So that you have this thing's it's got an ass going on, if you will. This little runner right here is your interior accessories. See if we can get that to focus. There's one of your door panels. This door panels fit into the interior the way the 1980s monogram interiors go together. You'll see that in a second. This is your dashboard. The engraving here is all right. Frankly, the engraving on the Buick GNX dashboard is much better and is also, 30 years old at this point. The dashboard does have a serious depth issue. This should be much wider front to windshield ratio than it is. I'm sure it'll look okay when it's assembled, but if you, again, take the older parts and compare them to these newer parts, it's a little bit different. They've decided to split off pretty much the entire instrument panel into its own separate piece here, rather than just the gauge cluster like the older 80s cars. And then, of course, you have your mirrors. Oops. Dip it back here. You get your mirrors, your exterior mirrors, and then it also has your steering column with telescope. I don't know if this telescoped or not, but a tilt handle and your turn signal. This will be your seats. Your seats are two pieces. They don't necessarily seem to be the easiest things to mold back together again, just because they really actually did a nice job with these seats in the sense of making them whole, if you will, as far as including all the details. I mean, this right here, you can see it has the seat belt, would be the seat belt buckles. It has the extensions on the side of the seats here for the seat folding. It's got the little ashtrays in the back of the seats. It has a pretty decent pattern as far as the seat pattern itself, but because it's got the seatbelt buckles and the lumbar adjustment and everything else, trying to make these two, again, this is filling a seam issue, which is, it's a better problem to have than not, I suppose. But again, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to put back together again. And the seats themselves sort of have no bottoms because the entire platform to the seat is molded into the bottom of the chassis tub. This again is a 1980s monogram construction. The Regal and the Monte Carlo both the same way, where it's a tub like this, and the tooling inserts for the doors go in here. That unfortunately strikes the pedals into a reasonably one-dimensional thing. It's not. They are risen. They are raised, but they're not. If they were in real life, they would probably be about the thickness of, I don't know, like a deck of cards maybe. And the pedals weren't exactly real thick in these cars, to begin with, but just the way it's there, it's very old school. The back seat here has, again, fairly decent engraving as far as the seat pattern goes, but it's really, really narrow. If you go get excuse me, if you go get the Regal seat out, the entire back seat goes out to where these pegs are, and then there's a rear package shelf and the pegs that hold it into the body. This thing seriously is, the seats should come back to at least here, and then the package tray should come back to about here. This thing is a good, overall the thing is a whole about inch short, because it should be about this long. So, it's about an inch short. The seats themselves are, I wish I should have got my measuring thing out before I started doing this, but I don't have it with me, so just, play along at home. But, the seat should come to here, and then the package tray should come to here, and then there should be pegs off of it. This interior itself would never fit inside one of the old Monte Carlo Regal kits, because it's just too short this way, which makes me wonder if the whole car's too short. But comparing the bodies, they really don't seem to be. Center console, okay engravement there, nothing to write home about. That leaves us with 2 parts trees left. This one is the hood, obviously, the rear wing, and the front bumper extensions. The underhood area has, I don't know, I'd call it mediocre at best underhood detail. It's also got 4 great big ejector pins right on the corners of the hood. Nothing that you aren't used to seeing, I suppose, but still, I suppose the only good thing is there's no detail to sand off, because there's no detail to be there in the first place. Also, an injector pin mark right smack dab in the middle of the wing. Seriously, put the ejector pin here, like this pin spot right here, or this pin spot up here, or this pin spot over here, which is where the pin's hitting the sides of the runner itself. You can put one right here, and it would have taken care of needing this one here. Maybe 2 here, 2 here. Tamiya, with their no ejector pins on their 300 SL space frame chassis, showed everyone exactly how many little pins you need on the runner itself to keep from ejector pinning the parts. There are, try to see here, there are no ejector pins on these fender extensions, but it wouldn't matter anyway because those mount to the body. That leaves this as being the final parts tree. It's your steering wheel, your air cleaner, your rear and front bumper. For the people who haven't seen it before, yes, the girls are molded into the front bumper. This, again, much like a 1980s monogram kit. If you go get your Regal or your Monte Carlo out, you will have your completely, whoops, I'm trying to get this down, there we go, your separate front fascia. Yes, this will allow them to, with changing this tooling insert up, to do other kits like the prototype Cutlass, I can't think what the heck that is, like F3X, I believe, or FX3, or a regular Cutlass, a 442 perhaps, in further issues of this kit down the road, maybe a drag kit, maybe something else. But, I don't know. This is not a very deep engraving, and it does make me worry that people who have the habit of shellacking, and by that I mean just painting the living bejesus out of things, are going to just completely bury this girl, never to be seen again. And of course, this is a 2-tone car, being black over silver with the Hurst colors the way they are, so that makes it even possibly more likely. Where's my? I figure out where my there it is. Where my clear tree went off to. Your clear tree, windshield, rear window, headlights. You have turn signals, actual physical glass turn signals. One here. It's kind of hard to see through here, and I realize, but I don't want to take this out and get scratched. But there's 2 glass turn signals here, 4 headlights. There's also a pair of long ones here. I'm assuming that's, I don't know what that is. I have to look. But your vent windows, and then this piece right here will be your gauge cluster. Okay, now I'm curious. Let's see, 60, 88, 89, and 95. Okay, so these 2 down here on the end. These 2 have no part call-out, so they're not going to be used on this build. So there's obviously a second build coming, or second kit coming, because there's parts that you don't use. And here, last but not least, is your body. It's okay. It does not have any weird textures. It does not have any weird machine marks. To me, it more or less looks like, from the side profile, an Oldmobile Cutlass. We'll just go ahead and rotate her around here. And then that brings us to our engine bay here, with a lot of stuff molded in. You know, it is that sort of monogramish. I keep saying monogram, and you guys probably getting tired of it, but it is the way it is. With everything being engraved, your batteries over here, your charcoal canister, your washer fluid. Um, you know, nothing is necessarily melty, where things are going down the firewall, never to be seen again. But like I said, everything is molded in, and so this is going to take some careful detail painting, like I said, to paint like the backside of the battery in here, between the firewall and the battery, painting this a realistic color, and painting obviously the inside of the fender wells are going to be black because the body will be black, so this has to be white, and some actual research and special Googling of the real vehicle going to be helpful. Let's see, mold lines. You have a mold line that runs the parallel length of the trunk here, and then it comes down. Let's see where it exits. It comes down the corners right here. And that's the rear one, and the front one will come across the fender here, and then just run down sort of the edge of the fender and down. Having the front clip, the entire front clip, and the back bumper be separate pieces, of course, does make it so that you're not sanding mold lines across those. And there's a mold line that runs across the entire top of the roof. The top of the roof itself has a weird sort of molding, at least to me, where it's got a bump in it right across the middle. I don't know if there's no brace on the inside, so I don't know why that is, but you can definitely feel there's a raised hump right where the B pillar goes laterally across, and at least to me, that gives the door frames, I don't know how well that's going to show up, like a weird kick. They seem to kick up too high, and or especially on this side, on the driver's side, this seems to raise up in a weird way here back in the back. I would, maybe it's that it's maybe it's right and I just don't realize it, but to me it just looks weird, but which may have something again to do with the fact that, like I said, there's an actual, you can feel it raised area. It's hard to show on camera, and especially on this side here, there's just a weird sort of, see the way that is, that's just not quite flat. It's all undulated there. It looks like the side, like the side of the roof was perhaps not molded cleanly. I don't know if that's a manufacturing error or something to do with the mold itself. There are on the inside of here 4 giant ejector pins on the roof of the interior, so those will have to come off. There is a pedestal here for the rear view mirror attachment. And there are great giant big holes in the doors for the holes in the front end leading into the door for the rear view mirror. So at least those will attach securely. Windshield wipers are engraved into the scuttle panel itself. They're not separate, but that's again the way the Regal and the Monte Carlo is.
Okay, so I've never been one on the whole judging scale, 1 to 10, or give it a letter grade. So what we're going to do with these kit review videos is we're going to sort of do the good, the bad, and the ugly, quite literally. Alright, so the good things about the kit. It's the only one. Decals look good. Instructions are concise. Whether or not they're clear remains to be seen when you're actually building it, because Revell's instructions have had a few typographical and instructional errors. Think of the 29 Ford with its telling you to use the wrong floor pan if you're building the Highboy, things like that. Which are just, like I said, printing errors, and nothing that I'm going to be critical about. But overall, the instructions Revell does are clear and concise in the sense that you should know what you're building when you build it. I like having the parts named. I'd rather have them named in the instructions themselves, but at least you can figure out what you're doing, and hopefully, if you're not really into cars or you're new into building, you can learn the names of things and things like that. The molding overall seems to be pretty well done. There's no major flash issues. There's no major parts lines. There's no major molding seams. Some ejector pins. Well, we talked about the underhood ones, things like that, but nothing too extraordinarily out of the ordinary for a Revell quality kit, or a kit of Revell's quality, depending on how you look at it. I'm trying to think, and just overall, it seems like when you put it together, it will look more like an '83 Oldsmobile than anything else. All right, so the bad. It's an '80s monogram kit, shined up, polished a turd, so to speak, and then given out to you. For all of the ease and simplicity of an '80s monogram kit, hopefully that will translate in the construction of the model. However, it is 2016. We are patterning this kit after a 30-year-old model kit, and adding a few more parts and pieces here and there, and obviously a way more robust set of decals that was involved than anything from 30 years ago, Revell monogram. Well, monogram in this case, because at that point the companies were still separate. But, is that really where you want to be? From my understanding, at least from one online retailer, this kit is the best-selling kit of 2016 so far based on pre-sales. Be interesting to see what kind of momentum it keeps after pre-sales. This thing feels to me a little bit like the Mustang LX kit and a few others, where the initial buy-in was heavy, but once people saw what they were getting, sales really just fell off into the middle of nowhere. The 67 Camaro is a prime example of that. A lot of early buy-in to that kit, and then people saw what they got, and that was more of an accuracy in the rear end and front grille and various other things than it is like a construction problem. But people saw what that is, and from talking to our local resellers here in the Pittsburgh area, that kit has not sold at all once the initial buy-in was taken care of. It's just been languishing on shelves because people saw what they got and word of mouth spread. This kit has a very large problem in that a lot of kits do, but a brand new tooled kit shouldn't have, and that is, yes, you get an air pump and a power steering pump and an air conditioning compressor and an alternator, but all of it's just hanging out. There's not a bracket to save any of its ass. It's just an unfortunate set of circumstances where in 2016, when you're doing a new tool, it's not that much of a deal to tool in at least maybe a bracket for the alternator or something, but all the stuff is just free hanging off the serpentine belt like it would in 1980s monogram land. There have been a few kits recently that have had things like brackets for the alternator, and this isn't one of them. Of course, the exhaust and the rear end are hollow, which may not be that big of a problem to a lot of people. Personally, I don't necessarily care, but again, it's just one of those things that you didn't have to pattern it exactly after the 1986 kit in the sense that it has the same issues. The interior, is it too short? Is the interior in the Buick's too big? My kit, of course, has that weird hump on the roof that you can kind of see, but really feel, and it's got that wobbly edge to the passenger side roof. I'm missing my passenger side mirror face, which is, yes, a production issue, not a Revell issue, but it shows again that Revell's quality control is job 4 and not job 1. I don't know how well, it's Revell's decals. They haven't been bad lately, but this is a lot of decals. You're basically decaling the belt line of the whole car the whole way around, and the decals are supposed to overlap and stuff like that. I don't know. I've never been really impressed with Revell's decals on a large scale. Some of them don't take decal setting solution as well as others. It seems like it's a very hit or miss thing, and Cartograph is the one doing their decals for the most part, so it's kind of odd that they have that problem. But I worry about those decals because they're fitting on very odd edges and things like that around the corners of the bumpers and stuff like that. Hopefully that won't be a problem. Is it really something that's bad? Well, it has potential of being something that's bad. And overall, I don't know, a 94-piece kit. Could it have been more pieces? Sure. I just don't necessarily care for the content and construction of the pieces. It's 2016. It is not 1986. I don't need the nostalgia of building those kits when I was a kid. In '86, I was 9. And so I built the Monte Carlo. Was one of maybe the first dozen glue kits I built. I think the Regal was out later than that. If not, it may have been out earlier. But I remember the first of the Regal kits I had was the high-tech series or whatever it was called that had the very computerized graphics in the background, that had the GNX, the Oldsmobile Aerotech, the Corvette ZR1, the squareback, so to speak, GTA, Pontiac Grand Am, or Grand Prix, Firebird, GTA, that had like tubing and stuff like that came with the engine. And that was probably 11, 12 years old when I built that. I don't think I necessarily painted either one of them. I think I shellacked them in that brush paint, the brush on Tester's enamel gloss. Hey, you know, that yellowed over years, and eventually I had brown models. I don't. So much of the stuff just to me is aimed down in this kit. It's another video for another day, but I just don't really see where modeling for the beginner in every single thing is really going to help you. Yeah, like I said in the review, it's a stepping stone to a full blown level 5 kit in the sense of parts content, because level 5 kits aren't any harder than level 3 or level 4 kits at Revell. But it just, for this kit and the following that it has within the drag racing community, the lowriding community, the NASCAR community, and so many other things, to have it just be what it is and kind of dumpy, I think disappoints a lot of people. A lot of course, the casual weekend people will be happy and thrilled with it because, holy crap, I got a Cutlass on the shelf and now look at that. But for the enthusiast model, really, I'm not impressed. Okay, the ugly is strictly pretty much the tires in this kit. What in the world were they thinking? I know what they were thinking. They didn't have any 1980s, smaller diameter or tires, but go make some. Seriously, I bought that model kit for $20 from our guy that does mostly show stuff and has his building now. So really, legitimately, a hobby shop should not be charging more than, say, $25 for it. I'm sure it'll come up as $27, $30 from the rip-off artists out there, but for a good quality hobby shop that isn't trying to screw you, it shouldn't be more than about $25, $26. Charge me $27. Or I'll pay 22, whatever. But charge me a couple extra bucks and put some tires in it. Bias ply tires from the 1970 Hemi Cuda is not a viable option for this kit. And with the weird way that the tires and the wheels are constructed to have that sort of inner lip and paddle wheel nonsense that has been going on, that is lifted directly from die casts, not anything that has ever been done in plastic before. But I'll be damned if everybody out there going, "Oh, this is the greatest thing ever," because they're stupid. No. I can't put these wheels into any other tires without going through and milling a whole bunch of stuff off of them. The tires are effectively useless because what else am I going to put them on? It's just a mess. It is cost-cutting to the extreme. I wasn't expecting sidewall detail. I wasn't expecting a product placement logos. But really, honestly, how much additional money into this kit was it going to cost to make a set of tires that you could then use for everything else? There's going to, like we said in the review, there's going to be the F3X or maybe a F3X kit for sure. Whether or not that's combined with like a 442 or a factory stockish kind of kit remains to be seen, or that's going to be a third variation, because some people have that said, "Oh, there's a 442 kit coming." Whether or not that's actually true, I don't know. But I do know that the F3X prototype kit is coming, because that was one of the cars that they measured. Whether, like I said, in order to have a 442 out of that, it would need a different front clip, which is a mold thing, and everything was done at one time, like we've talked about before. But whether it'll be in one box or over two more kits remains to be seen. I don't know if the F3X is really enough of its own model to really sell well enough to not have that sort of 2-in-1 building option. But be that as it may, they would have had tires for that if they decided to do like a Grand Prix and finish out the G bodies, because at that point the only thing with this Oldsmobile out, the only thing you're missing is a Grand Prix, because you got the Monty and you got the Regal in 124 scale, which of course a bunch of people will complain that it's the wrong scale, but tough titties. To complete out the G bodies in general, you would have needed it for that. Any 80s, early to mid 80s car, you're never going to do another one. I think the investment in it now to not have a problem later would have been well worth the $2, $3, $1.50, whatever it would have cost to tool up a correct set of period radials. It didn't have to be Goodyears. It didn't have to be Firestones. It didn't have to be anything in particular. It could just been sort of what Mobius did with the 65 satellite, where they created some sort of new low-profile tires that really aren't specific to anything. They kind of look like dirt track tires, actually. That, you know, at least there's something not, you know, bias plied from the 1960s like the tires you get in here. One other ugly thing is, because I still don't think it's reasonable, is having this thing be what it is. I saw the tooling layout on a forum. Somebody found it floating around online. Well, whether that was the original tooling format for the diecast kit that never came out, or was really this kit, or, you know, the sort of the patterns for this kit, I can't tell you, because this kit looks like it has more parts in it than that tooling pattern did. The original tooling pattern only had like 50, 60 parts in it, which makes me think it was the diecast. But this one is still constructed the exact same way, in the sense that it's following a 30-year-old model kit. And I just think, personally speaking, you can disagree if you want to, that the automotive hobby needs to be going, you know, more hardcore than it is. You know, you need the basic stuff, you need the snappers, you need the pre-paints, you need all that stuff to get people into the hobby and warmed up. But it seems like too much stuff as of recently has been this sort of dumbed down 30-year-old technology kit. The only thing that you really see that's not is the 29 Ford 34, because that was somebody's pet project. I don't know. I know that there will be fans of this, because there's a certain genre within the hobby that is very much towards the idea of simple, basic kits, and that's fine and dandy, but there's nobody over on the armor aircraft side of things that is going, you know, these tanks are too complicated. I wish they make them simpler. Separate elevators and rudders, or rudders and there's just too much in this airplane kit. I can't build this. They don't do that. And I think it's a very unfortunate thing, because it leads us to look like a bunch of overgrown children and not serious modelers. Which isn't to say, of course, there aren't serious builders out there, but sort of hitching your cart towards the casual people and not the actual real hardcore people, I think only going to get you so far, because those people are only going to build so much, and there's only so many of them, and eventually they're either going to want to progress up and not have anything to go into, or they're going to drop out entirely, in which case, now what? You have a bunch of model kits that appeal to a crowd that doesn't exist. So anyway, guys, that's the look at the new Revell 1983 Hurst Oldmobile. Give me some feedback on what you thought as far as the new review style, aiming like down at the parts tree rather than across at things. We have a number of things that we picked up that I like to do kit reviews on, get a little bit more content on the channel in general. Of course, that's all fun and games until I actually have time to do it. But at any rate, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you guys on the other side.